misunderstanding lang, sir.
You cannot dismiss unless clear the point.
The movant made a motion to dismiss the impeachment complaint, if I heard it right, Mr. President. Mr. President, may I just place on record that this representation respectfully object to that motion. Mr. President, for various reasons, Mr. President, that this representation would like to raise on the floor, Mr. President. One, Mr. President, is that the Senate, as a legislative body, and at this point in time, we have not yet convened, Mr. President, as an impeachment court. And therefore, Mr. President, this representation believes that we have no constitutional authority as legislative body to dismiss an impeachment complaint. Let me quote the Constitution under Article 11, Section 3, Number 6 of the 87 Constitution. The Senate's role is expressly limited to trying and deciding all cases of impeachment after the House of Representatives has transmitted a valid articles of impeachment. Please don't get me wrong, Mr. President. In fact, a lot of the statements made by Senator Bato de la Rosa, I share the sentiments, Mr. President. In fact, Mr. President, when the impeachment case was filed, or the articles of impeachment were transmitted here in the Senate, an hour before we adjourned, Mr. President, before our break, a week after, more than 380 pages, Mr. President, of annexes ang dumating po, Mr. President. So, dun pa lang, Mr. President, I agree with Senator Bato's statement na somehow minadali or tignan natin. But again, Mr. President, my only concern here is that we have not yet convened as an impeachment court. We can probably dismiss this or even entertain the motion if we are already acting as an impeachment court. Let me go to my other point, Mr. President. The Senate lacks the power to dismiss an impeachment complaint and has no constitutional duty to proceed to trial. And that's why, Mr. President, if you recall yesterday, this representation mentioned that notices are very important when the minority leader made a motion yesterday that he wanted to stop our legislative work and proceed with the convening of the impeachment court. And he made mention about the calendar of activities, kung kailan magsisimula, ano yung timelines, etc., Mr. President. And that's why I objected again, Mr. President. So in the name of consistency, Mr. President, impeachment, Mr. President, is a political discretion. It's not a political discretion, but a constitutional mechanism rooted in the principle that public office is a public trust. Alam na po natin lahat yan bilang mga lingkod bayan. Yung sinasaad ng 87 Constitution, which provides public office, is a public trust. Public officers and employees must at all times be accountable to the people. This duty, Mr. President, is not suspended, nullified, or extinguished by the expiration of the legislative calendar or the transition to a new Congress. But again, I also believe and support the statements made a while ago by Senator Bato de la Rosa. Yung pong functus officius ng Senado, hindi ho applicable sa atin dahil kalahati nga ho sa atin dito, magiging party pa rin ng impeachment court, party pa rin ng Senado. Pero dun po sa House, hindi na. So kailangan talaga na malaman natin kung sila'y interesado pa dun sa impeachment na kanilang i-final.
The basis for my motion, according to Chief Justice Renato Puno in Francisco versus House of Representatives, a number of things can be done before the Senate is convened as an impeachment court. For example, the Senate, which has the primary jurisdiction over the case, can decide the question of whether the one-year ban has been violated or not. Likewise, the Senate can decide whether the complaint on its face has any legal basis.
Mr. President, if I may.
So as not to belabor the point, Chair would like to state the parliamentary status and make a ruling. Again, to reiterate, Senator Bato, after the end of his privileged speech, made a motion, but before the Chair could act on that motion, he asked for the recognition of Senator Bato, who wanted to second the motion of Senator Bato at the end of his speech. Before the Chair could act on that motion and recognize Senator Bato, Senator Ontiveros and Senator Villanueva signified their intention to speak. Senator Ontiveros made a motion. Made a motion to suspend further consideration of the matter at hand so that we can proceed to take our oaths. And then Senator Marcos raised the point of order that there are too many pending motions on the floor and that we should dispose of them, as correctly pointed out by her. Senator Villanueva objected to the motion of Senator Bato. With the permission of Senator Villanueva, hindi ko po ituturing na objection yung inyong sinabi dahil ayon mismo sa inyo, hindi naman kayo tutol doon sa motion ni Senator Bato, kanya lamang. Gusto nyo at sa paniniwala nyo, pwede lamang ito magawa kapag tayo ay isang impeachment court na at hindi bilang isang Senado. Ayon sa authority na kinokot ni Senator Bato, may opinion, may concurring opinion. Si dating Chief Justice Puno na pwedeng itong gawin ng Senado. Concurring and dissenting opinion siya sa pagkakaalala ko sa Francisco. With the permission of the gentleman on the floor, the Chair is of the considered view that and takes well the position of Senator Villanueva. We will act on the motion of Senator Bato, but as an impeachment court.
Yes.
We cannot act on the motion of Senator Bato unless we take our oaths as members of the impeachment court. Therefore, once the impeachment court is after we take our oaths and we convene the impeachment court, Senator Bato can reiterate his motion, Senator Go can then second his motion, if at all, and we will proceed to dispose of such motion after we hear from everyone who wants to speak on the matter.
Mr. President, just to clarify your statement, Mr.
Senator
President.
Villanueva, before I make a ruling.
Yes, Mr. President, you were, because the way I look at it, you're saying, Mr. President, that in order for us to dispense with the motion of Senator Bato, we would have to convene?
We would have to convene the impeachment court, as you said earlier.
Yes, Mr. President, I thank you for that. But in order for us to convene again, Mr. President, and just for the information of our law students and those who wanted to learn from these proceedings, Mr. President, this representation made a statement yesterday that we cannot proceed with the convening of an impeachment court unless we issue notices, Mr. President. And I made mention about it because the minority leader's motion yesterday was to convene and at the same time talk about the calendar of activities, Mr. President. And so I would just like to put that on record, Mr. President, because we are not going to discuss the agenda of the, if we convene the impeachment court. Is that the case, Mr.
The
President?
matters to be discussed requiring notice included the proposed schedule of the impeachment complaint, which needed the presence of the parties, however.
Because if we can do it by ourselves, for example, Mr. President, just approving our rules on impeachment,
However,
issuing summons, we don't need to issue notices. Is that correct, Mr. President?
However, there are certain matters that the court can do motu proprio.
Yes.
And it would perhaps include these matters, which is up for the consideration of the court once we convene. So again,
You know, as the good Senate President mentioned yesterday, the Senate dismissed the impeachment complaint against Ombudsman Gutierrez after she resigned without convening the impeachment court. Therefore, the Senate, without convening into impeachment court, is not prohibited from dismissing the impeachment case, Mr. President. It's very clear. When you say iba nga kasi nag-resign. Pero still, the capacity or the legality of the action of the Senate not convened as an impeachment court was not questioned. So therefore, considering this case, I think we can do the same, Mr. President. May I respectfully request that before the ruling is made, or you have made the ruling already, so I therefore object momentarily your ruling because I have to consult my
Session is
My
suspended.
colleague.
Session is suspended for a minute.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.